Morning, morning, everybody. Michelle is here. Michelle is up really early on the West Coast, on the east side of town. I wanted to get up pretty early because I know I got a lot of people on the east. You know what I mean? And I know y'all are up. I know nobody's up on the west. They still got their asses in the bed. I'm sure, right? Anyway, you know, time is relative. How many times have we heard that? And and nobody seems to have an answer to certain things about that quote, which I believe was by Einstein. Um, he died a while ago, right? Some time ago, decades ago, I guess. I can't remember per se, but he had been working on that theory for quite some time, right? Um, about the time is a relative thing, and for some reason, I woke up this morning thinking about that for some reason. So I'm gonna meditate on it, meditate, cultivate, don't ruminate. See, I'm confused this morning, but I'm gonna cultivate it, contemplate, meditate on that, but not ruminate, and find out why that popped into my head. You know, time is relative, and then also I was looking at something else that caught my attention. See, that's what usually happens for me. It's like I get a certain sense of things. And so I just investigated. What is it all about? Right? And there's also a thing about time perception, right? The study of time perception. And it refers to the subjective experience or sense of time, which is measured by someone's own perception of the duration of the indefinite and unfolding of events. So that caught my attention as well. So I'm just, it's just something that popped in my head. And I think, well, so I'll meditate on it and see what transpires about it. But I also want to give you my perception of when it's time and when I knew it was time. You know, I left a toxic work environment, as I clearly documented. And during that time, though, before leaving that toxic environment, we had some issues with management. Some of my former coworkers. I had some issues with management since I actually started with the, lateral transfer to that department. I noticed that there was um, these management styles that were equivalent to, bondage, and slavery per se, in the consciousness sense. It was a consciousness terrorism that you can tell that has existed, from the inception of the agency. Because listen, I made this very, very clear that law enforcement was built on white supremacy. Okay, and most of the law enforcement officers in the department all over this country and possibly all over this world have ties to white supremacy. All right, so that's not it ought not to be a revelation per se. But just like the military, okay, the military was built on white supremacy. And so a lot of people question certain motives and certain, and I told you about Abraham Lincoln was not our savior, by the way. And when I say our savior, a lot of Black Americans attribute Lincoln for freeing us, per se. And that's anything but true. However, we all have our perception of our realities. And what I look at is the results, if that were true. I look at the results of that. Is that really true? Right? Because a lot of people will, especially in the pyramid of politics, okay, and the forefathers of politics, or the forefathers of this or forefathers of that, we have no idea what they were thinking because no one asked the appropriate questions, okay, to find out exactly what are your intentions here. A lot of people just took the word out of their mouths and assumed that they were telling them the truth and that they would follow up on certain promises and agreements, and because your word, if you make an agreement, your word is just as valid as anything on paper. Okay, so in other words, if you make a promise to people just to get their support, then the people that you are making these promises to are going to do what? They're going to expect some results from the promises that were made. So in other words, your promises out of your mouth is just as valid and more so important than anything on paper. Okay, so if you make a promise to someone and you fail to keep that promise, you've broken an agreement, right? It holds up in court, doesn't it? So let's go ahead and let some light in here. Look what color I am. I look blue, All right, let's do that. Feels a little chilly towards this window here. So in other words, your word is just as important as anything on paper. Probably more so, because when your word is usually in front of a human being, and you're promising this human being, if you support me, blah 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 blah. That's how it was done. Nobody was necessarily writing up contracts per se. Okay, because keep in mind, supposedly, a lot of people could not read or write. Only a few were able to do so. Just think clearly and effectively about that. So that's why I said the tones and sounds from your voice are so mindful and valuable based on your intentions. Okay, but if your thoughts are spinning otherwise, that's where the contradictions come into play, right? So again, we need to resolve these realities of what we hold dear to us and what's important to us. We always say a man's word. What is that? Something about a man's word is worth more than silver and gold, or did I just make that up? Let's consider here. I don't want that glare. A man's word is his bond. Let's go to that. Oh, and women existed. Even though women are taken out of every historical book that I've seen, because no woman, no cry. So in other words, women were there. They were just erased out of books. Okay, because without women, there is no cry. Consider that. So, the meaning of, if someone's word is their bond, they always keep a promise. Okay, let's go further here. There's some quotes on that, which is good. Let's go to the origin. I guess there's an origin of it. But of course, everybody's, sampled a lot of things. And so a lot of, as I said, a lot of wording and meaning has changed. Has anyone investigated that? So in other words, you're holding something close and dear to you that may not even have that same value anymore. Okay? Let me see if I can find something else. But anyway, I mean, I think it appears to be clear and effective that a man's word is his bond, which means, if he makes a promise, that promise ought to be kept, right? If you make a promise to someone, you ought to follow through on that, okay? And a lot of people do the handshake stuff, which I don't do. I don't handshake anybody. Okay, that was a personal thing I started years ago before the fist pump. I stopped that. Okay, now I'll explain that at another time, but I didn't feel comfortable shaking hands. Because usually women, we weren't shaking hands. It was always men wanting to shake hands. Men are into that. Most women are not. And most women are not for a reason. And I'll go into that. It's about instinctual connection there. Because it is a connection when you're shaking someone's hand. And usually and because of our degeneracy, it became almost disgusting and creepy to touch another man's hand. And I'll go into that. I mean, from a woman's point of view. So let's go here. Let's go to this and see what this term means. But anyway, time is relative. That's what I woke up to. Okay, and then I also woke up to thinking about the value of time. And like I said, at my former job in that toxic working environment, we had been battling that management for a few years, maybe 3 years, right? And it was that's why I say you need to know the value of a union. Okay, you need to know the value of the union. And each time when certain co-workers would go to the union to help them with the battles with the management, they got nowhere. Okay, and then when I was approached, because I wasn't a union member, I've not ever been a union member. Let me make that clear, to my knowledge. Okay, and that was my choice. Okay, however, because I didn't see the value. Okay, listen to what I'm saying here. So when a coworker came to me and said, "Look, we have this situation that we want to resolve, and we want you to come on board because they have a new representative that's willing to listen to us." And I said, "Oh, okay." I was cool with that. Okay, so I joined the union because, okay, if someone's saying to me or saying to us or saying to them at the time that he's willing to listen and help to resolve our situations, or at least give us a resolution or a solution, because that's what it's all about, by the way. Everything's about resolution and a solution, not spinning in circles and making irrelevant talking and speeching about nothing. But anyway, so I said, okay, I'll join. And I did. I joined. I didn't necessarily meet the new person, the new representative, but I talked to him a lot on the phone. And I think then we started having Zoom meetings and blah, blah, blah. So this guy was new, per se, new in our, new as a representative for us, first responder type, civilians first responder type. He was new into that field, so he had no idea what we did and what we do and blah, blah, blah. But what was great about this man is he listened. And it appeared he took of course he took a big picture view of things, and he took it from a stance of how would I like to be treated. If I'm a first responder or I'm a service provider, because that's basically what we were. We're providing service. So he listened to us, and and what he did is he got the ball rolling. He started getting in the ears of, certain management, and dealing with the city, and all that red tape and all that whatever goes on in the city. What the hell goes on there? That's that pyramid management, all of it. Whether it's city, county, state, federal. Okay, there's a lot of good in that, of course. I'm good. I came out of that kind of environment of first responders. I was a good first responder, and there's others that were, but some that were not. Okay, the terrorism of those that are not, that is filtering through all of that. Anyway, he listened to us. He put some information. He provided us some information. He told us about this. He told us about that. He gave us some examples of what he's done and da 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 da. So I was impressed with him. I said, okay, hey. So the union became valuable then, because there were results from his involvement, and he assured us that he is going to fight for us, and he did, and I appreciate him so much. He made it clear what his intentions were, and that's what you need. You need someone to tell you, okay, what's your experience with this? What is your results? And this is what I can do because of my experience and my results. Blah blah blah. So while all that was going on, like I said, we still had to work. We couldn't picket or protest, or what is that called? Strike. We could. Come on now. I would feel. I would feel. I don't know. For me, I would feel irresponsible if I did that. Just striking because I'm upset with management, but I'm taking it out on the citizens that I'm supposed to be providing service to. That just seems a bit. It sounds contradicting. Okay, and because a lot of elderly people were dependent on us, or me, specifically, because I was targeting them, not targeting them negatively, but targeting them positively, because they're the ones that had approached me one day on the streets, and I'll go into that one day too, and told me about some of the concerns they had. And I made a promise to them that I'm going to clean up your area. In other words, I'm going to clear up all this disregard for city ordinances, disregard for, respect, and, all that going on in the community. I'll go into that. Okay, I made a promise to this one woman who approached me one night, while I was in the area, and she said to me, she pointed out some violations. There were some serious violations going on around this woman's house, and this woman's house was beautiful. It was like I could not believe my eyes that her home was in the middle of all of this going on around her. She was elderly, retired, professional, and she had all of these violations of ordinance all around her, where you didn't even know her house was there. Okay, so I made a promise to her. I said, look, I'm going to clean up your area. That's what I said. I said, I'm going to clean up downtown. That's what I said. And then I went into lineup one day, or roll call, whatever they call it now. And I made that announcement as well in front of management that were there. I said, I'm going to clean up downtown. All of these so-called chain of commands were there, and they heard me say this. Okay, I said it. Okay, and that was a promise to her, and that was a promise I kept, and there's no denying it. Okay, I have proof of it. that I made a big difference in that area for that woman, for that elderly woman that had purchased this beautiful property, and it was disregarded, and it was, like I said, it was like she wasn't even there, so she couldn't even enjoy the fruits of her labor, being concerned about, her surrounding environment. I cleaned it all up, trust me. Okay, and I cleaned it up enough to where certain so-called high-profile convenient chains decided to come in the neighborhood. They felt safe to come in there. Otherwise, okay. So that's the kind of effort you have to put into, if you want to provide service to people. You want to, in other words, if you're going to make promises, you need to keep them. Okay. And that's, politicians do not do that. Most of them do not keep their promises. All right. So let's go back to Abe Lincoln for a moment. Okay. So consider his situation, right? Because supposedly he ran on this stance that he was not, in no terms was he going to be freeing slaves at all. He was totally against it. Okay? Totally against it. But guess what? Guess what he had in mind? And these are my theories and opinions based on my understanding of results. How about that? Draw your own conclusions. Have your own perception. Have your own perspective on things. And for me, I look at logic and what does it mean? And I know, I sense, because the results. There's no way we understood what the minds of these so-called founders. Okay, to me, it was all based on smoke and mirrors and lying and deception and getting over on people. Okay, Abraham Lincoln had no desire to free any kind of slave, the free slaves at all, none. It was a benefit. Why would he? He benefited. But if you want to take it a little further and understand this, there was a pending war. Right? A pending war. So guess what? Smoke and mirrors. Release them. Tell them they're free. Put them on the front line of a battle, of a war. Isn't that more like what we do even today? So we have to think a little bit more in depth and see if we can fill in missing pieces and connect dots. Okay, it's always about conquering and destroy. I said that before, and it's not about peace and love, and that's far removed. That's foreign language to most people in their politics, and that includes. It still continues today. Look at the results. We're always in war. Okay, and are our promises kept? When they go out there campaigning and terrorizing people, to take one side or another, who keeps their promises? In most cases. All right, and I told you, when one president attempted to provide universal health insurance to everyone, okay, that sent people into a rage and threatening. I'm sure threatening him and threatening everybody else that was a part of it. So you need to understand, the power. And I'm gonna go back into it at a certain time. Like I said, theory of time is relative popped in my head this morning. I'm not going to talk about it yet until I understand what that's about. And also, time perception. And I've been saying it's about time anyway for a while. Everything is about timing. There's a timing here. Okay, there's a tick-tock timing of things. Okay? And so to say I got enough time, well, is that subjective or objective? when you say you have enough time. Okay, so so you have to ask a question, about a man's word and a man's bond. And ask yourself, are you keeping the promises that are you providing results or keeping your promises? Because keeping your promises is just as important as anything else, especially if you make an agreement in front of someone and making that human to human contact of an agreement. And then if you don't follow through, so chances are, that's my theories and opinions about this freeing the slaves indoctrination, because that's all it is. It was a false perception, and it was an illusion, a delusion. Okay, and people, these human beings, these black males, these black Americans, were just a means to an end. Okay, put them on the front line, and guess what happens? We can eliminate that problem. And it's still done today. Most of the people you see on television running their mouths and rambling in military uniforms have not been on front lines anywhere, except in boardrooms or hidden in caves and underground. They're protected. They're protected military. Hadn't battled anything. Probably don't even know how to wash dishes. Let's just be clear and effective here. I've known many people that have been in the military, and they hadn't been in any battlegrounds of any battles. Okay, they provided services to the military, so they hadn't fought in any wars. There's always been a particular type of human being that has been used to put on the front lines of major wars. Until I'm not sure what's happening recently, in the last couple of decades or so, but I knew it happened during Vietnam. Okay, and if they weren't on the front line, something else was happening to them. They're being experimented on in labs. This is what was told to me from the mouth of a man that protected me in the neighborhood. And I told you about this man who approached me when I was 17 years old. He had to be in his 30s, but he approached me when I was working one day in a fast food place. I was either 16 or 17. And he didn't approach me in a predatory fashion. He approached me in a very respectful manner. That's why I gave him my phone number. And he called me for decades because my parents never changed their number. But he was protecting me in the neighborhood. He was a Vietnam vet. He told me about things that they were doing to him, experimenting on him. And I can imagine there was thousands of others where this stuff happened. Okay, so there is no way in the world we can say that, someone is our savior when we have the results that we have now. No way in hell. And that includes some that, that were, and I'm not going to say their name because they're still alive. I said it. I put it out there, but I'm going to leave their name out of it. I'm only mentioning Abraham Lincoln because he's no longer with us. But there's another particular, most all of them have an agenda, and there's a means to an end. Okay. And I'm going to ask another question too. Let's see who answers it anonymously. Because look, I pick up questions, because, and like I said, I appreciate anyone that's anonymously supporting me. Okay. Because I understand the dangers. I like to protect people too. I can take it, but I like to protect people as well, as best I can. Okay? Especially people I love. And so sometimes, like I said, you have to be creative. You have to be creative in order to sometimes get the ball rolling, so to speak. We just have to re-examine, like I said, re-examine what we hold dear, and we'll realize that it has no value anymore. So when you are attempting to work with something that has no value, you get no results. Okay, that's why some people are struggling and staying in the journey decades upon decades because they have these concepts of terms and this and that and the other that have no value, and some of them have been infused in their subconscious, and that's why you can't complete and be successful at certain goals and this and that and the other, and you continue in the journey, continuing deja vu, always starting over from the same point that you were, and then you say, gosh, how do I keep ending up here? Why do I keep ending up here? Okay, it's something in your subconscious is causing that, and you have to investigate it. All right, you have to take it there and be willing to do so, and no one has to know. Okay, no one has to know. So it's getting bright outside there. It's looking beautiful. I got my plans for the day, handling my business. So I'm going to probably talk again later today because I have something more to say about time on a personal level, dealing with me and which perhaps can help others to understand the importance of time and what it means when time is running out. Right? Okay, so it's Thursday. Let's see what that date here. October the 12th on a Thursday. Peace and love, everybody. And trust me, I'll be back.